I got into these habits, and partly because I thought they were correct. I thought you're supposed to stand up, stick your boobs out, and, like, stand up straight. And I would lock my knees and, try to go about my day walking around like that. It's pretty hard. And then I took ballet since about age 10 for 4 years. And in ballet, we were taught to pull up our knees, straighten the knees, right? Tuck the belly in, right? And put the chest out. Well, not exactly, but it was very, very interesting and difficult to do because you had to lengthen the back. And some of it was correct, but some of it was absolutely incorrect. Now, what's the big deal with posture? Well, here's the thing. When we have bad posture habits, our head, which is very heavy, okay, 10 pounds here, becomes extraordinarily more heavy and pulling on the body when we have poor posture. So you will see either yourself or other people as they walk around, as you watch them, and I've seen myself in pictures and kind of went, ew, is that our tends to stick out. So we tend to go like this, and we tend to kind of round our shoulders that way. And what happens is that the physiology of the body does not work that well, and eventually that can contribute to all sorts of problems. Now, the fascia, which I'm fascinated about, fascinating fascia, is the connective tissue that connects everything to everything inside our bodies. If we didn't have connective tissue, we'd all just fall into a hump of protoplasm on the ground, because there's fascia intertwining within the organs, the muscles, the tendons, and it connects everything to everything. And that's why when you stand up, not all of your, abdominal organs fall to the bottom of your pelvis, right? Because the fascia holds it up. So when you have incorrect posture, the fascia cannot function as well. The fluid in the fascia, the energy running the fascia, which runs pretty much everything, cannot really flow, and you can get into all sorts of problems. So that can cause thyroid issues because your neck is in this weird place. It can cause back issues, neck issues, other organs not working well because your diaphragm's collapsing in, like the whole belly's collapsing in. We're right-sided or left-sided. So the single-sidedness also causes the fascia to twist. And so we need to actually not only untwist it, which I'll talk about in the future in another healthy habits video about block therapy, but in terms of today's topic of standing posture, what we can do every day immediately, and it's free, to really be aware of our posture, to optimize the flow of energy and information throughout our bodies and not throw our bodies out of whack. Now, one of the things that was my pet peeve when I was active in as a medical doctor, was when somebody would get an injury, and understandably, they'd want to put that person in a splint or cast or something like that. So if it was their lower body, they're putting them in some sort of splint or cast. And here's the thing, in a walking splint, it looks like it's pretty innocuous, right? It's just a walking splint. How bad could it be? But how much taller is that walking splint on that one side of you than the other? Like, the people that invented these things, were they not aware of human physiology and alignment? Like, pet peeve, right? So oftentimes the person's hip would be hiked up on one side, the fascia would shorten on that side, and over the 6 to 8 weeks that they had that splint, or however long it was, it would mess up the total alignment of the body, and therefore the information and the energy and the function of that body. So I'm like, well, if you're going to give that person a splint, please give them a splint on the other side. You know what I mean? Or something to elevate so that at least their hips and shoulders are even. This is something that I did not pay much attention to before, and I'll do another video on sitting posture. But today I wanted to do a quick video on standing posture, and this is something that I'm actively working on, meaning that I do not have it perfectly down because I have had decades, decades of incorrect posture. So one of the things that I have, sometimes less so now, a habit of, hey Karen, is the posture where we stick a hip out, and we kind of sit on one hip. Now, it looks sexy in pictures, right? We see them in catalogs all the time. It's kind of like an attitude thing. And we think it's, oh, what's the big deal? Well, years ago when Karen Cortland Kelly, one of my amazing skating coaches, would did do Pilates with me, and she would say, don't do that. Like she'd literally go, no, 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 stop doing that. And I was like, what am I doing? She says, don't do that. Don't stick your hip out like that. I'm like, okay. But now I have a greater understanding of why. It was a habit and literally caused torsion in the fascia and the fields and the alignment. It was all messed up. I really didn't think much of it. But think about yourself. Do you do this thing where you have this habit of sitting on one hip? Okay, so that's one thing to be aware of. I'll tell you what we could be doing or should be doing instead of that. The other thing we do is, like I said, we kind of go like this. And it's interesting when people walk around or stand like that, that really means that intellectually, like, or metaphysically, that their head rules their heart because their head's in front of their heart. It's really interesting, you know. And so it's keeping this chin not tucked and not like a military neck, but keeping it so that there is a little bit of stretch back here. So the top of your head, the crown, is facing, up here. So it's not back, it's not down, which we do a lot of that, right? While we're looking on our phones or reading. So I just actually bought a reading stand so my head could be level. We'll talk about sitting and reading in another video. So we want to pay attention to all those parts to when we're standing to have even weight on the feet. So let me show you some other pictures here. So this is Deanna Hanson. This is my block therapy teacher, and these are slides borrowed from a presentation I did with my patch training team, LifeWave team, around the 90 days ultimate facelift protocol. But anyway, we talked about patches, and then at the end we talked about these other things you can do to optimize how well you look, even your face. Yes, a facelift. So Deanna Hanson on the left is showing us bad posture. And this is so common. We see this all the time, right? So as you can see, the plumb line down the green line as her neck is sticking out here, right? And her shoulders are kind of curled in. And you can see the curvature of her back is like really severe here as well. It's actually hard for her to do bed posture. So this is actually pretty darn good, this one that she did. See how her butt's tucked in? Yeah, her butt's tucked in. This is the habit that I had even standing on 2 feet, is I'd completely straighten my knees thanks to ballet, and then I tuck my butt in thanks to ballet as well, and then I turn my feet out, which is horrible, okay, for the posture. It looks beautiful on dance, but horrible for everyday posture. So I was literally torquing my bones in an abnormal way, and that causes all sorts of problems down the line. It could be decades later. So you see how her butt is tucked here. She's squeezing her butt. I do this unconsciously, and I have to consciously go, oh, relax, let that go, right? And then what happens is that the posture causes our bellies to stick out. Yeah, because of this collapse in the rib cage. And then we don't breathe as well, and then we don't oxygenate ourselves as well. And actually, anatomical position is palms facing forwards. When you look at people when just walking around, if their palms are facing back, they have a lot of fascial torsion. So most of us have our palms kind of facing our bodies when we're walking, but ideal actually is facing outwards. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, like who do you know that does that, right? So here you can see the foot is splayed out as well, kind of like the opposite of pigeon-toed is that duck feet kind of splayed out. Not ideal. Now on the right hand side, you'll see the ideal posture. You look at that plumb line, goes right through the spine. So the head, the top of the crown faces up, right through the center of the spine. And then you can see that there's a balance between that sacrum. The butt is not squeezed in. And here's the most important part for most of us to remember is to keep the knees bent. Now, when I was in skating, when we would tell people to bend their knees, their butt would stick out. So my coach Mimi would say, okay, don't tell people to bend their knees because their butt will stick out, they'll lose the balance. What you want to tell them to do is bend their ankles and their knees will automatically bend. And you know what? It's true. Just try it right now. It's like, think about bending your knees and then think about bending your ankles. You get similar results, right? Except when you bend your ankles, you stay straight up and down. You don't pitch forward and stick your butt out too much. So keeping the knees bent is huge. Why? Because the chi and the energy running through the body, if you are locking your knees like I did in ballet and pulling them up, okay, and activating those quads all the time, you're literally blocking the flow of energy through the body and definitely through the lower body. And it's no wonder that with all the activity in the ankles and toes and everything like that, that ballerinas have to deal with, and the kind of shoes that they wear, is that they get into all sorts of arthritic problems in their lower bodies and their hips and their knees and their ankles and all that kind of stuff. And you want your feet facing forward, not out, not in. And then when your knees are slightly bent, they really should be going over your second toe. Okay, so you can see at the bottom here, her feet are facing forward. They're at hip width apart. Now, this is in standing posture. And you're like, well, when am I ever standing like that? Well, you'd be surprised. In line, when while doing dishes, while waiting for something, we tend to stand in this unconscious posture. So I want you to start to, if this resonates with you, start paying attention to what it is you're doing. Is your weight evenly between both feet when you're standing with both feet? That is ideal. And according to Deanna, 80% of your weight should be in the heels. And she said most people have it the opposite, on their toes, and they're tipped forward. So you do want your big toe down, but you do want the majority of your weight to be in your heels when you're standing. And remember, knees bent or ankles bent, whatever works for you, to remind yourself of that. Now, one of the things that you can do to improve your posture and to train your posture and to get rid of some of these bad habits is to, when you are literally focused on standing, like I have a standing desk, so sometimes I will stand while I'm doing things. And people might think it's a little funny because sometimes I'll disappear and I'll reach down for something and come back up. What I'm doing is I'm repositioning my block. So block between the thighs. And you can change the block this way or this way for beginners, all the way down to the knee area and squeeze. And those inside muscles, the adductor, ADD, adductor muscles tend to be very weak in people. And even in figure skating, we use the abductors, the outer ones, to lift our leg a lot more than the adductors. So they tend to be weak, and the fascia tends to, twirl around the legs, causing us to look like we have fat thighs, even though it's not necessarily fat, it's migrated fascia. So by standing with the block between your knees and having your knees bent, that will just remind you to put even weight in both feet and to have this beautiful position where you are much more aligned. So and you say, well, what do I get out of it? Well, it's amazing what you can get out of it. So this is the same person, about 20 years difference or 25 years difference. So on the left is the younger Deanna, where she was an athletic trainer, did 400 sit-ups a day, lots of heavy, heavy workouts, and could not lose weight. Why? Because her fascia was stuck. There was a lot of negative emotion stuck in the fascia. And as she discovered working through the fascia with her manual hands as an athletic trainer, first starting in the belly and elsewhere, she noticed an immediate improvement in her mood. And then the body shape changed. And one of the things she says is very, very important for us to pay attention to our posture. So we'll talk more about how block therapy can help you go from left to right, A to B. And she does live and recorded videos all the time. So it's not like it's photoshopped, she actually is slimmer, healthier, taller, and much more healthy than she ever was. So pretty cool stuff, right? So standing posture, pay attention to your standing posture, because in the long run, it makes a huge difference in the quality of your life and your healing. And you do live in a human 3D dimensional body. So we do need to pay attention to those things, despite whatever else you're doing, energetically, patches, whatever it is you're doing is good. And also, pay attention, because those negative bad habits can kind of start canceling out some of the good stuff that you're doing, and you want to continue that momentum to improve the body, to reverse that aging, etc., right? And so that's why posture is so important. Hello, Beth. Hello, Jocelyn. Oh, you're watching from the Philippines. How cool is that? Okay, so that's this week's video, a healthy Habits Healthy Life. And I'll be back talking next week about sitting posture. And then probably after that, we'll talk more about how I use block therapy and how that can be really, really helpful, especially to reverse some of the damage that we've done through lots and lots and lots and lots of bad habits over many, many years. Okay, great. Yes, thank you, Susan. Yeah, Susan says cranial sacral therapy she does, and fascia is really important. Fascia is highly underrated, and we didn't learn too much about it in medical school. So I'm learning all this stuff now. And yeah, yeah. So enjoy. If you do, you don't have to, necessarily have the a block to do the posture, but it is really, really helpful to train yourself because I know when I have the block there, it activates my mind to say release the butt muscles because of 4 years concentrated, however many 3 times a week of ballet, I just immediately contract my butt muscles. And so I get that reverse heart shape, not the most attractive, um, but and so having that block really helps. So if you have a yoga block, rolled up towel. I mean, something can help you train that if you have a standing desk or doing something, at the sink where you're standing to remind yourself, that'd be really helpful. All right. So love you guys. Thanks so much for being here with me today, those that are on live. And remember, if you're watching on YouTube or some other platform, go ahead and give it a thumbs up if you like this video and subscribe to my YouTube video. And I'll see you next week. Bye for now.